Mr. Tonko is recognized for 7 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This amendment will strike reconciliation instructions to the Energy and Commerce Committee and the Natural Resources Committee, which have jurisdiction over many of our nation's programs to lower energy costs and protect public health and our environment. Climate change is real and already having huge impacts on Americans' economic well-being. We are living with perpetual disaster response and recovery from the consequences of rising sea levels, warming oceans, raging wildfires, and more frequent and damaging storms. Just recently, we saw the devastating effects of hurricanes in Florida and western North Carolina and wildfires in Los Angeles, destroying people's lives and property. Recent studies have shown that climate change could wipe out $1.5 trillion in home values across our United States by 2055. And companies do not want to insure properties that will be under constant threat of fires or floods. People are already feeling these effects on their wallets. State Farm is seeking a 22% rate hike for homeowners in Southern California, and our federal budget won't be immune either. There will be increased outlays for flood and crop insurance and other disaster assistance. We should not accept a world where the United States government not only ignores, but actively seeks to undermine efforts to reduce the climate pollution. But that is the Republicans' plan. When Democrats were in charge, we took historic steps to reduce pollution and deploy American-made clean energy technologies which will lower energy costs for families. And by all measures, this approach is working. Since August of 22, over 400,000 new clean energy jobs and over $420 billion in private sector investments have been announced across the United States. Many of these jobs have supported domestic manufacturing in steel, semiconductors, and batteries, to name just a few. 75% of these investments have gone to counties with lower than median household incomes, many of which are represented by Republicans. These investments are starting to revitalize the American industrial economy and uplift communities that have suffered from decades of underinvestment. But the Republicans have made no secret about their intent to repeal programs that protect our planet and create hundreds of thousands of jobs. We heard that the energy tax incentives will reduce Americans' bills, but this is also true of the grant, loan, and rebate programs that have been funded in recent years. Thanks to the Inflation Reduction Act, several states have already made rebates available to help low and middle-income households with energy costs by providing up to $14,000 to install electric appliances and make other home improvements. Energy efficiency rebates are also available, providing up to $8,000 to people that retrofit their homes. According to the Department of Energy, these rebates are expected to save families up to $1 billion in energy costs each year and support 50,000 U.S. jobs. DOE is also issuing loans and loan guarantees for innovative projects that private finance won't support. These projects cover a wide range of technologies, including restarting a nuclear power plant, developing domestic critical mineral processing capabilities, and promoting hydrogen production, technologies that many Republicans have claimed to support. And several electric utilities are taking advantage of low-interest financing to invest in their grid infrastructure and then passing the savings on to their customers. It is clear that the Republicans' top priority isn't lowering energy costs or fostering emerging industries of the future, but rather whatever is best for big oil executives. They will happily open up our public lands and waters for more oil and gas leasing, doubling down on dirty fossil fuels, and further accelerating climate change. They want to finish their multi-year policy crusade of repealing rules that EPA was legally obligated to issue in order to protect Americans from dangerous air pollution. And they have taken aim at eliminating the charge on methane emissions, a program which will generate federal revenues while incentivizing our companies to reduce waste. Methane is a potent greenhouse gas that is responsible for a third of the warming we experience today. Curbing methane waste from the oil and gas sector is urgently necessary to avoid the most catastrophic impacts of climate change. But Republicans want to give polluters a free pass. Big oil doesn't need any more favors. The U.S. is already the #1 producer of oil and gas in the world, and American consumers aren't seeing the benefits. The oil and gas industry enjoys at least $15 billion in subsidies from American taxpayers each year. And in return, big oil companies collude with foreign cartels to drive up prices for American families and contribute to inflation. This amendment would allow us to reject Republicans' attempts to reverse the American clean energy transition and manufacturing boom underway and deny regular Americans the economic and public health benefits that are coming with it, all to further enrich big oil executives. It is now my pleasure to yield to a friend and colleague, our great gentleman from Rhode Island, Mr. Amma.
Thank you to my great colleague from the state of New York, Mr. Tonko. Look, it's easy to miss the forest for the trees when considering this budget resolution. But here's something very concrete. The menu of targets and cuts Republicans drew up, we've all got it, is very clear. This is nothing short of a hit list. And I hope that it lays to rest once and for all the idea that Republicans somehow care about lowering costs for Americans. How could you, if you're considering rolling back measures in the Inflation Reduction Act that offer up to $14,000 in rebates for low and middle income families to make their homes more energy efficient? It's right there. These improvements in my district can save Rhode Islanders up to $1,150 in their annual energy bill. But the benefits don't stop there. These improvements can increase their home values anywhere between $9,800 and $23,000. That's real money. It's hard for me not to come to the conclusion that Republicans don't want people to achieve these savings. That instead, Republicans want to roll back programs that lower energy bills and increase home values. I yield back.
And with that, Mr. Chair, I yield back.
Thank you. The gentleman yields. Is there a member who would like to claim the time in opposition?
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. McClintock is recognized for 7 minutes.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, this amendment by the Democrats would add $881 billion to the deficit by striking the provisions of the budget resolution that direct $880 billion in deficit reduction from unleashing American energy supplies and another $1 billion by restoring sound forest management. You know, the Democrats' policies over the last decade or so have been to deliberately lock up our energy supplies on federal lands behind a wall of regulations and restrictions. The fact is, the day that Donald Trump left office in 2021, America was energy independent for the first time in our lifetimes, and a gallon of gas cost $2.42. On his very first day in office, Joe Biden signed executive orders that put federal lands off limits to new oil and gas exploration. He canceled the Keystone Pipeline, and when energy prices skyrocketed, he depleted the National Petroleum Reserve and begged hostile foreign governments to increase their production. You know, America is blessed with the most abundant energy supplies of any nation in the world. Our petroleum reserves are greater than those of Russia or of Saudi Arabia. We're blessed with over 4 trillion cubic feet of recoverable natural gas alone. Nearly 8% of our nation's GDP is from energy, the vast majority of that from fossil fuels. Just a 1% increase in GDP would mean $250 billion a year generated into our economy. Similarly, our timber resources are vast. Yet America's become the second largest importer of soft pulp timber in the world, while our own morbidly overgrown forests succumb to disease, pestilence, drought, and ultimately catastrophic wildfire. In the Tahoe Basin, we cut the red tape. We provided forest thinning projects a categorical exclusion from NEPA in 2016. That took the environmental studies from an average of 5 years down to a few months. It took the environmental reports from more than 800 pages down to a few dozen. We increased timber yield from the federal lands at Tahoe from 1 million board feet a year to 9 million board feet a year. We tripled the treated acreage. And our forests in the Tahoe Basin are now returning to fire resiliency. And in fact, that's what saved the city of South Lake Tahoe from the Caldor fire. We once funded the entire Forest Service and a sizable portion of local government budgets just from the revenues generated by federal timber auctions until regulations and red tape paralyzed us. The deficit reduction numbers in this resolution are a fraction of what can be achieved simply by getting government out of the way and unlocking our vast natural resources. And if your thing's carbon dioxide, the natural gas production is what has brought down American carbon emissions, and active forest management promises to prevent CO2 from forest fires. A UCLA study revealed that just the 2020 fires in California, just that 1 year, released more carbon dioxide than had been prevented by 18 years of backbreaking environmental restrictions combined. The Ivanpah Solar Energy Plant just this week collapsed of its own economic folly, taking more than $2 billion of taxpayer money down with it. Enough is enough. The instructions in this resolution challenge the Energy and Commerce Committee and the Natural Resources Committee to claw back the billions of dollars of green energy scams that have enriched green grifters at the expense of working Americans. But far more importantly, they charge the committees with the statutory changes necessary to restore energy and resource abundance to our economy by removing the unnecessary impediments the Democrats continue to mindlessly defend. The irony is that the only thing standing between the American people and an era of affordable, reliable, abundant energy and water and timber is the crushing regulations and bloated federal bureaucracy that the Democrats keep defending. They remind me of Tolstoy's observation when he said, "I sit on a man's back, choking him and making him carry me, and all the while I assure him and anyone who will listen that I'm very sympathetic of his plight and I'm willing to do everything I can to help him, except by getting off his back." Well, the Democrats, the people have spoken. Get off our backs. Over the Speaker's roster in the House chambers, a quote from Daniel Webster. It's a prayer, really, and it's a challenge to each of us who serve here today. Let us develop the resources of our land, call forth its powers, build up its institutions, promote all its great interests, and see whether we also in our day and our generation may not perform something worthy to be remembered. With that, I'm pleased to yield the balance of my time to Mr. Stutzman.
Well, thank you. Thank you, the gentleman from California for his comments, because, I come from a district in Northeast Indiana. We're one of the largest manufacturing districts in the country, and we're not, energy and commerce are huge issues for us, not necessarily from the production standpoint, but from the consumption standpoint, where we produce steel, we produce orthopedics, we produce cars, and so many different products that benefit Americans on a day-to-day basis. We produce equipment for our military men and women to be sure that they're safe when they're protecting our country. And so to have policy that continues to hold back our energy capacity is only going to hurt not only our ability to protect the country, but it's also going to prohibit the opportunities for men and women across this country to provide for their families. One of the things that we know that's coming is also the increase of data centers that are going to use a huge amount of energy. And so we're going to need to have the ability to increase our nuclear production. We're going to have the ability to increase our baseline production. And so when we see the other side continuing to push and subsidize these green energy scams, it just doesn't help our country in the long run. Energy is such an incredible tool that we have here in America, and we know for a fact that China is the great polluter. They're the ones that are growing faster than any other country in the world in energy production, and they're going to continue to eat our lunch if we let them, and that's why we need to focus on policies that will truly energize America and put people back to work and produce for this country. I'll yield back the balance of the time.
Gentleman's time has expired. Mr. Tonko is recognized for 1 minute to close.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Republicans have been very clear that they will adopt policies that double down on dirty fossil fuels and repeal policies that are actively working to lower energy costs for American families and create jobs across our country. They are already causing uncertainty for American businesses that are creating these jobs in the strategic global industries of the future and undermining additional potential investments. We simply cannot let that happen. The federal government should be a strong partner to the private sector and individuals that want to build a cleaner and more affordable energy system. Look, the first Trump administration betrayed the American energy consumers, the American public, by being a climate denier and delayer, not allowing for us to work effectively in a global community to address climate change. Now, Republicans with this budget bill are looking to further betray the American energy consumers. I ask that you support this amendment. And with that, I thank you, Mr. Chair, and yield back.
Gentleman's time has expired. The question is on agreeing to the amendment offered by Mr. Tonko. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. No. In the opinion of the chair, the noes have it.